Thank you, Pastor. Good morning. Well, right off the bat, I just have a confession to make. I hope you will not judge me by it. I'm a recovering COVID person, not the addict. I found something I thought I want to share with you. Is it okay? Yeah. By the way, thank you, Pastor Patrick, for that introduction. It's my honor and pleasure to meet you guys and meet him. And I found a few new friends and a new family here. But anyway, I want to share with you on this. I'm so excited about this. You know what? Today marks my first month without any sugar and junk food. Woo-hoo. I can clearly see results. Thank you for the applause. I can clearly see results by losing 6 kilos, running 5 kilometers each day before breakfast, and I stopped eating dairy and flour and caffeine too. The change in my body has been fantastic. Woo-hoo. I feel great, and I planned to make this my new lifestyle, eating a healthy diet that is completely vegan, gluten-free, caffeine-free, and sugar-free, and working out 2 hours every day. Whew. Actually, I don't know who wrote this. I found this on the internet. I thought it was... I thought it was inspiring. By the way, thank you for the applause. Can I teach you 3 words in Chinese? In Mandarin. Actually, each time you enter into a Chinese restaurant, you greet the Chinese owner, 你好吗? Hey, that's good. You guys are linguists. Let me try again. 你好吗? Yeah, ma is, you got to, tone up. Ma, be careful. Yeah, that's how we call mom also, ma in Mandarin. So it has a different variation. So ma is like a question mark. Ma also means mother. But if you tone it down like ma, be careful when you call a mother ma, because that means horse. Be careful. This 你好吗? If you forget this, always remember, yeehaw. Almost the same, all right? Try going to a Chinese restaurant and greet the owner, 你好吗? He might be so impressed with you that he might give you an extra piece of tofu. All right, back home in Singapore, I'm in the universities that I'm teaching, they call me Dr. Tokimon. Like Pokemon, yeah. And that become my brand now, Tokimon. And this 10 days ago, my wife and I celebrated our 35th year anniversary. Wow. And we celebrated via Zoom because she's back home in Singapore. When you look at her, you look at me, I know you're wondering how could it ever happen, right? like how lucky she is, right? Yeah, we courted each other, we dated for 7 years before I said yes. Okay, I know that's a lie, okay? About 8 years before I said yes. Yeah. We've been married for 35 years, and we have 2 wonderful children. And Matthew is 30 this year, and Tiffany is 29. And they are all back home in Singapore. And 6 years ago, the organization that I'm with asked if I could come on full time. I've always been in the board of directors for the last 10, 15 years. And the new director came on and asked if I could come on and serve full time. And I said, yes, okay. because both my children are studying here. My son is studying in New York, Buffalo, New York. I think that's the coldest place in this world. And my daughter is studying at Lee University at Cleveland, Tennessee. I get confused with the two Clevelands. And so they were studying here. I thought, okay, this is an opportunity for me to come and be closer to them. I said, yes. And I moved to another country for the work. And that country is called Alabama. You know that country? You know, I speak 5 languages. And when I moved to Alabama, I learned my 6. Yes. But anyway, I'm glad to be here with you all. I always heard so much about your pastor. I'm glad I can meet him and spend half a day with him and get to know him better. News have emerged from Ukraine about the war there, and that it is now noted that the Russian army, are kidnapping young girls, forcefully taking them away from their parents and their homes and their family. I wonder what it would be like to be a young girl, 7, 10 years old, to be taken away from your family, and to, God knows where they were brought to. I can imagine the trauma these young girls will have to put through, been put through. At that young age, a young, tender age, your friends, your family, your future, suddenly all disappear. As a psychologist, I do see many children who suffer from such trauma, and sometimes these traumas stay with them for the rest of their lives. So there was a girl who was also been taken away from her family. The soldiers from the neighboring countries came into their country, came into her village, and raided them and killed anybody at their, whom they so pleased, and then took these young girls back to their country and make them slaves. Make them slaves. As young as 7, 10, 12 years old, these girls were taken away from the family, and this young girl lost her family, she lost her freedom, she lost her friends, and obviously she lost her future. What does my future hold? I think that's a question that these girls will ask. I think the pain, the psychological pain, can be very traumatic. She must have cried. I don't know, maybe she had to learn a new language, learn to eat new food, do things at the behest of others without giving any choice of her own. That's what slave girls does. All because of this man. His name is Captain Naaman. Captain Naaman was the captain of the he was the captain of the army of the king of Aram, and he was very, very highly regarded by his king. And through him, the Lord had given him victory to Aram. You know, this verse in verse 1 in 2 Kings verse 5 sounded strange a bit to me, because God gave him victory over the people of Israel. You know, he was the commander of the army of the country of Aram, and God gave him victory over the people of Israel. You know, sometimes God allows things to happen to us. Perhaps he was trying to get our attention. This man, for some reason, the commander of the Aram army, went into Israel and raided them. And God gave him victory for that. He was a valiant soldier, but he has a problem. He had leprosy. An incurable disease at that point of time. And his man raided Israel and took captive a young slave girl who lost her family, her friends, her future. I wonder what it would be like for one to be taken away from the family at such young, tender age. And all of a sudden, she was found or forced to be in the corner for the very person that took away her freedom. She now has to be in the corner for the very person who is responsible for her pain. It was not her choice. She was made a slave girl for Captain Naaman and his wife. And all of a sudden, she was forced to be in the corner for this man who came to my city, killed my people, took me away from my family, and now I am in his corner. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. If I were this little girl, I would be cheering for his opponent. Give that to him. Yes, yes. I would be celebrating every time the opponent got him and got him bad. Yes. And this man now in the ring has a problem, incurable problem. He has a disease called leprosy. Yes, God is good. Hallelujah, God is good. God is indeed fair. This man took away my freedom. Now he has this incurable disease. Must be a God thing. Must be a God thing. I thought that would be a normal reaction for most people, at least it would be for me. But not for this girl. She now stood in this corner, not by choice, but by force. She suddenly felt that my master needs help. My master is suffering from an incurable disease. He needs help. He needs help from my God. And so she told her mistress and said that if only my master could go to Samaria and see the prophet, and my God will heal him. Wow. You can take a girl out of Israel, but you cannot take the God of Israel out of the girl. You can be anywhere in the world, whether by choice or by force. You can be anywhere in the world. Do you know that God will never abandon you or forsake you? And He's there for you, and He's there with you. And He's wanting you to do the right thing. And He's watching you. This girl, despite her young age, she was courageous, she was caring, and she was confident. She was so confident that her God will, not may, will heal this man. If only my master girl would go to Samaria and see the prophet, my God will heal him. Wow, such confidence. Such faith. Such courage. Because what if the God of Israel did not heal this man? What will become of her? She doesn't care. She knew, my God will heal this man. Such faith. And such graciousness. She did not choose to be in his corner, but she was forced to be in his corner, and yet she did so graciously. I don't think I could have done that. I don't know how many of you could do it. I don't think I could have done that. But this girl did it. And there's no name that was given to her in this story. Just a little girl, a little slave girl. And she went to tell her master. And the master went to see Elijah. And even though he refused to get into the house of Elijah, Elijah went to her, told him to go to the sea and to the river, Jordan River, and dip himself 7 times. And Naaman was healed. And when he was healed, he said, indeed, there was a God. There's real, and that's the God of Israel. From a girl who was kept captive, who was there involuntarily, she won the most influential man of the country to God. And maybe sometimes God put us in a position for us when we are forced to be in the corner for someone that we really don't like, for someone who may have already betrayed us, for someone who really looked different from us, maybe physically or even socio-economically. I wonder how I would have performed. But she did so well. You know what? She showed a light to the God of Israel. And God said, I am the light. And if this is me, this bottle represents me. The light of God is in me. And everywhere I go, I shine the light for Jesus. Even to people that may look so different from me, even to people who have very different philosophy from me, very different language from me, people that I don't like, when I meet them, you know what? I can't help it, but the light of God is shining in me and shining through me. But sometimes we hide. We hide the light of God that's in us from people we feel that they don't deserve the light of God. I thank God I'm not God, because if I were God, there were many who would not make it to heaven. I thank God that God is God and He's so gracious. He's so gracious. He's so merciful. Everywhere I go, I'm mindful that the light of God is in me and is shining through me. And everyone that I meet, whether I make that choice or not, I'm found in the corner for that person that God wants me to be with. Jesus said that you are the light of the world, a town built on a hill that cannot be hidden. See, when we profess ourselves as Christians, you know, there's no other way, but people will know that, okay, you're a Christian, you're supposed to shine the light, there's a certain standard of lifestyle about you. You will be so different from the people in the world. Because we have the light in us. This little girl, she was so brought, she must have brought up well by her parents that the God of Israel was with her, even though she was living away from her family. She shines the light of Jesus. Well, 3 things if we want to shine the light for Jesus. Number 1, we need to overlook our prejudices. Now, prejudice doesn't mean against others. Most of the time, we have our own prejudice against ourselves. Sometimes we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, God, you can never use me. I'm so stupid. I'm so ugly. I'm so off and all that. You know, when you start finding fault with yourself, you cannot find God in you. You know that? When you look at yourself in the mirror and start finding fault, you cannot find God. This little girl could find so many faults in her life. I'm away from my family. I have no friends. I have no freedom. And she can have that victimized mindset. And yet she doesn't care about all this. She says, I'm here. I'm here to shine the light of the God of Israel. I'm here because I'm put here to be in the corner for that guy in the ring. And I need to do my job well. We can't find God if we don't look low enough. Sometimes we dismiss people who are a little lower in their strata of society, and maybe they don't speak our language. We just ignore them, we dismiss them. See, the moment we start finding faults with ourselves, or we find fault with others, we can't find God. we can't find God. Sometimes we need to go to the crevices, the nooks and corners of the world and say, okay, here you are. Here you are. And here I am. How can I serve you? This is me here when I was 18 years old. In Singapore, all males have to be conscripted to serve in the army for 2 years. And it's where you will serve, what division in the army is not your choice. And so I want to make sure that I have a choice to where I will be serving. And so I decided to sign on to be a pilot. That was in 1980. I've been through the danger zone. That was 1980, way before the first Top Gun movies came out. Right, this is the state-of-the-art aircraft then in 1980, in the late 70s and 1980s. This is FYE. And I decided I want to be a pilot. I always have this ambition to be a pilot. And so I signed up to be a pilot. I went through the course. I went through the training and all this tough test after assessment that I would go through. After 2 months, they came to me and said, sorry, you are not accepted in the Air Force. We can't take you on as a pilot. So they rejected me. By the way, at the Air Force, they don't reject you, they eject you. Poof. So I was ejected, I felt dejected. And I was so despondent. And I asked, why am I rejected? I passed all the tests. Yeah, there's one department that said that we can't take you in. I said, what? You see, he said, the officer told me that it's your height. He said, we need a minimum height. And I'm sorry, we can't take you in. But it's not my problem. It's God's problem. God made me this way. Because, you know what? I blame God. I was so angry with God. I became a Christian in 1973. That was when I was 13 years old. And I go to church. I do everything that every Christian does. And God made me this way. God, why did you make me this way? That I got rejected or ejected from the Air Force. I blame God. I was so disappointed. You know, and of all the person who shook me and took me out of that victimized mindset, it was my mom. You know, most Asian mothers are called tiger moms. And she shook me up and said, get up on your feet, enough of your moping. Move on with your life. She was not educated. She came, she was a escapee. She and her family actually escaped during the World War II from China to escape from the Japanese. They came into China, and so a lot of people from China left and gone into Southeast Asia. My mom came into Singapore. And my dad and his family also came to Singapore. And they met each other in Singapore, they got married, and I'm the outcome. And my mom told me, get out on your feet, so what if they rejected you? There are so many things that you can do in your life. So stop crying and stop moping. Wow, that came from my mom. I thought I can get some affirmation and some consolation, but instead she came in and said, you get up on your feet. And then she said this. Your dad gave you a name and live up to that name. And all of a sudden I realized, because Chinese family, we all have our Chinese names, and my name Frederick, actually I gave it to myself. When I became a Christian, I said, I want a name for myself. I want a Christian name. And so I found Frederick. For some reason, I found Frederick. And she asked, do you know the meaning of your name? I said, yeah. You know, my dad gave me a name. It's Bright Friend. That means Guang Yu, bright friend. So your dad called you a bright friend. So get up and go out and be the light to others. I was like, sounds familiar from John, from the book of Matthew, chapter 5, that you are the light of the world. And suddenly, my mom told me that I can be the light. All of a sudden, I'm the light. I realized, wow, some use for me. And that's why I studied psychology, became a psychologist, when I turned on the light for people whose world has darkened. And I began to look into the Chinese culture. We may be Chinese, but because we are educated in English, and so sometimes you hardly speak any Chinese at home and back home, especially in Singapore. Then I began to realize, to look into the culture of Asians, especially Chinese. I realized that when they worship their God, they worship it, whenever they pray to the God, they pray with three joysticks. Three joysticks. And I always wonder why. And someone told me that before Buddhism ever came into China, Chinese worship a god called the God of Heaven. There's no altar, no figurines. They just worship the sky to this God, and they give, each time they pray, they put on three joysticks. I mean, there are three gods in heaven that we are worshiping. Sounds familiar? I see there's a connection there. And the number three is so important because, let me teach you something in Chinese, okay? This is one ear. Two, the second stroke, make it two. Third stroke, make it three. Duh, right? Three. And of all the numbers, they could have chosen 4 or 2 or 6 or 7. They chose the number 3 to create the word king by putting on the stroke down. So you can see there's a heaven, there's earth, there's someone in between that connects them as a king. So the character, the Chinese character is actually a compound word, right? It actually a combination of different characters to make into one character. So this is a character of king. And then when you put a little dot at the top of the word king, then you have the word Lord. Isn't that interesting? And when you put a character, to put a dot at the top of the word Lord, you have lamb. So the character lamb came from the word Lord, and the word Lord came from the character king, and the character of a king came from the number 3. Okay, that's lamb, all right? Let me just move this aside and share with you another Chinese character. This is hand, so hand. This is ger, as in a sword or a lance. But when you put these two different characters as one, you put them as one, it forms a new character. This is the pronoun for me, I. So to the Chinese, the individual is someone who holds a knife or sword. You cannot trust someone who is talking to you holding a knife or a sword. So this is me. But when you put the lamb, the character of the lamb, over the character me, then now this form a new character. The lamb over the person holding a knife, now this form a new character. And this character is righteousness. Can you imagine that? The lamb over the individual makes the person righteous. So God could be the God of Israel. God could be the God of America. God could also be the God of ancient China. So we all could be brothers and sisters, all under the same God. And God is speaking to the Chinese just as He's speaking to us. So we shouldn't show any prejudice against anybody who look maybe different from us. They may be black, yellow, pink, purple. I'm talking about hairs. When the sun rises for all. When Jesus died, He did not just die for the Hebrews. He died for the Americans. He died for the Chinese. He died for the Cambodians. So we should, when we are in the corner, we should overlook our prejudice against anybody or even against ourselves if we want to shine the light of Jesus. to shine for Jesus, we need to overlook our prejudices, and we also need to be on the lookout for opportunities. Very often we look for faults, we look for troubles. We often get together because of some negative things that happen. Recently I was on a flight to New York, and then there was a storm, and the flight, I had a layover in Washington, IAD, and the plane could not take off because of the storm, and we had to stay a night. And I could quickly book a hotel in Washington, D.C. for me to stay that night, and all of us suddenly became friends. We were all lining up to check in, and all of a sudden they said the flight is canceled. Where are you going? I'm going to New York. Oh, you're going to New York too? And suddenly we became friends, and we start exchanging numbers. But when something good happens, not something good, when things are normal, I don't care about the person in front of me. I don't care about the person at the back of me. Suddenly, when something negative happens, you know what? We become friends, and that could be an opportunity for me to shine the light for others. There was one guy who was, I think he was from India, and he said, I have to stay in the airport because I have no money to book a room in a hotel. And I said, I'm going to book a room, you can stay with me. He said, you sure? Yeah. And so we had the opportunity to pray. It's not Christian. And that was an opportunity. Maybe when God stopped you from doing something, He could be pushing you to the corner for someone that you have never met, so that you can be a blessing to this guy. You can support this person. I never met the guy. The next day we checked out the hotel together, and he went off his way, I went off mine. Never met him. Exchanged numbers, but we never really contact each other. But I said, I'm a Christian, I'm going there to preach in the church. You want me to pray for you? Yeah. There are always opportunities. Sometimes we just stop at the problem, and then we become negative about the problem. But that's not what it was supposed to be. You see, Jesus and his disciples went and walked in the marketplace. They met this man who was born blind, and the disciples asked, whose sin? What a question, right? I mean, the man was born blind. Whose sin? What does sin got to do with his physical ailment or his handicap? It was just trying to find fault. Who is to be blamed for this person's problem? And Jesus said, no, neither. This person has a problem. It's an opportunity for me to shine, to do something about this. You know, when I read that verse, who sinned? I thought, hey, are the Hebrews like the Chinese? Because the Chinese believe in karma. You know what karma is, right? And they believe in reincarnation. It's just part of karma. If you live your life well, you will go to hell, but you will be reborn as a human being. All Chinese believe that they will be going to hell. So they don't have the concept of someone dying for them and that they can go to heaven. They are destined to go to hell. That's what the Chinese believe. So if you did badly in this world, you do a lot of evil stuff, you have to go through 9 stages of hell. You will suffer like crazy. After the 9 stages of hell, you will be reborn as perhaps a mosquito. Back to hell. It doesn't matter who sinned. How can God shine in this person's plight? How can God be made known in this person's problem? How can I now be in the corner for this person? He may look so differently from me. He speaks a little differently from me. He has a different color skin tone from me. But it doesn't matter. He has a problem, and I'm here. So why am I here? It could be God divinely appointed me to be here, to be in the corner for this man. We don't pick and choose who we want to be in the corner for. Like the little girl, the slave girl, she had no choice. She was forced into the corner for this man who was responsible for her pain. But she showed enough graciousness that she wanted this man to be well. And she won the most influential man to God. You can imagine how he will influence all the army and the people of Aram, all because of this little girl. We can't find God if we don't look low enough. I found this video. If the technical crew can help me to play that video. This was found, this little guy was walking in the streets of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. And he saw a boy. Wow. One day, perhaps sometime in the future, he passed on from this world. He was called into the presence of God. And God said, I was hungry, you fed me. I was thirsty, you gave me water to drink. I was without shoes, you gave me yours. Jesus, when did we ever saw you without shoes? Well, Jesus said it was on YouTube. He was so ready to give away his own shoes. So ready to run to the corner of this boy and say, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be supporting you. So much love and from this young child. We need to obey when God called and said, go to the guy and be in his corner. God, that guy. God, you may not know the history of this guy. Let me tell you about this man. And sometimes we think God doesn't know much. We want to tell him. You got to obey. I remember I had a patient once, and nobody liked this patient. She went through a trauma, a very traumatic experience, the worst traumatic experience anybody could have experienced. She and her boyfriend, she was 18 and her boyfriend was 20, and her boyfriend was out in the park at night, and they were talking, and then a man came up from the dark, brandished a knife at them. As soon as she saw the knife, she panicked. She became hysterical. She began to scream and yell, like, don't kill us, just don't kill us. And I'm not sure what she shouted, but she was so hysterical that she actually panicked the robber. And the robber got panicked and attempted to silence her by stabbing her. And as as the robber attempted to stab her, the boyfriend intervened, and the boyfriend fought with the guy with a knife. The girl fell to the ground, suffered some slight abrasions, and the boyfriend fought with this man with a knife and was stabbed 7 times and died on the spot. She got even more hysterical, screaming and yelling and shouting and kicking, and help came. She was brought to the hospital. As soon as she goes to the ward, she went to the bathroom and the restroom, and she broke the mirror with her fist and bloodied her hands, and she was attempting to take those broken mirrors, broken glasses, to stab herself, all the while shouting, "I should be the one dying. Let me die. He died because of me. I'm responsible. I ought to die. He died because of me." She was yelling and kicking and creating such a fuss. Ward 32. Nobody want to go to Ward 32 because as soon as they go in, she would kick up a fuss, shouting and yelling and asking people to let her die. Just let me die. No, am I going to be in a corner for this person? Man, this is tough work. And the hospital director, for some reason, called me up and said, "Fred, would you want to take up this case?" At the time, I already left the hospital. I set up my own private practice because as a private practitioner, I can choose my patient. This client, I don't think I want to deal with it. But the hospital director, who is a friend of mine, asked me, "Hey, Fred, would you want to take up this case?" I read the brief. I said, "Why me?" "Yeah, you." And I prepared myself. I said yes, and I went to the hospital, check in, and went to the ward 32. I still remember that. And I came in, I introduced myself, the nurses were there, her parents were there, and I said, "I am Dr. Tok, I'm going to be your psychologist, I'm going to help me." She looked at me, "Let me die. If you want to help me, please let me die. He died because of me. Do you know the story? Do you understand English?" She asked me. She was sarcastic. It's like, "Oh, it's not my problem, it's your problem. If you want to die, you die." "It's my problem. You don't have to be sarcastic with me." And I said, "No, I understand, the pain." "You understand? Just let me die." And she was difficult. As I walked in the corridor of the hospital ward, and a friend of mine, another a psychiatrist possibly, and she's a psychiatrist. She said, "Are you going to Ward 32? I said, "Yeah." She looked at me and said, "Good luck, good luck." But nobody's wanting to take up this case. Maybe I'm the last in the list. And I said to her, in situations like this, you cannot have a proper 45 minutes an hour session because she's not ready for that. So I have my game plan. I told her, "Look, all I need is just 5 minutes from you. 5 minutes. At the end of the 5th minute, if you don't like what I said, you dismiss me, and the hospital will engage another psychologist for you." "Why? I don't need that 5 minutes. I don't need help. If you want to help me, let me die. He died because of me." And the parents came in, tried to intervene, and told her, "Just give him 5 minutes." What is 5 minutes? If you don't like what he said, 5 minutes, just go on with it. And she was like screaming, yelling, and shouting at me, and cursing me and all that, and cursing all the nurses that were there. Nobody likes her. And she was in tremendous pain. I can understand what she was going through. And I said, "I'm going to be in your corner. I'm going to be into the corner for you. I'm going to be here for you." And then she slumped to her bed, sat there, and looked down. And she kept quiet. I take that as a consent for me to start my 5 minutes, because silence means consent, right? That's what I thought. So she was silent. She was no longer shouting back at me. And I said, "Okay, all right. I'm sorry for what happened." I said all those stuff. I said, I admire your boyfriend. I think he was one brave young man. And she looked at me. The eyes was like a dagger. "What's the point? What's the point?" So what? He was a brave young man. I said, that's important. That's so important to me. I think it's important to you. He did not die because of you. He died for you. He could have run away, but he wanted you to live. And that was why he fought so gallantly with the man with the knife. Because he so wanted you to live that he sacrificed himself for you. It was one brave young man. No, he did not die because of you. He died for you. His story needs to be told, because if you were successful in your suicide attempt, his death will be in vain. You got to tell this story about this brave young man. And then she looked down. She sobbed and wailed and cried and wailed and cried. And then she went silent. The room was silent. Like now. The nurses were silent. The parents were quiet. I was quiet because I don't want to interrupt her thoughts. She was quiet. After all the sobbing and the wailing, she suddenly just became quiet. I don't know for how long she was quiet. I don't want to interrupt. Maybe about 10, 15, 20 minutes later, she looked at me and said, I will live. His death will not be in vain. I will live. Suddenly her whole demeanor changed. She's still suffering from grief for the death of her boyfriend, but she stopped wanting to die. I could have said, no, I don't want such patient. This is so stressful. I don't need this in my life. I've come out of the hospital. I have a choice of who I want to care for. I have a choice not to say no to this person. But when the hospital director told me about this, I felt God is calling me to do something. You know, that strategy wasn't learned or taught or taken out from the textbook of psychology. It was taken out from the Bible. Because I know my God, your God, died for us so that we can live. If you're struggling today, you're going through a bad patch, always remember Jesus died for you so that you can live. So that you can breathe another day, so that you can live with a purpose and meaning. Because Jesus died on the cross for you and I. So live on. Don't give up. That was 20 years ago. And 5 years ago, she found me on Facebook. And we became friends on Facebook. She asked, do you remember me? I said, oh, I don't know. And she gave me a bit of a story. I said, oh, yes. The fact that she contacted me 15 years later, and she still lives. She's still alive. Whew. What if God were to call you to a different place, to a person that you never liked, that was so different from you? You got to remove that prejudice. You got to look at it from an opportunity for God to shine. And you need to obey and go to the corner. I said, I'm with you. I'm here for you. The girl lost her freedom, lost her family, lost all her friends. Not sure about her future, but she said, I'm going to do well in that corner. That guy needs healing. And my God can heal him. What about you? I don't know. It would be such a tough choice for me. Like I mentioned at the start of this message, 6 years ago, I was asked to come on board as the COO of this organization called People for Care and Learning. I had to make a choice because I have to live in another country called Alabama, remember? Meaning I have to give up my practice. I give up my income from my practice. I was enjoying the kind of income. At the time, I was one of the highest paid per hour psychologists in Singapore, $250 to $350 an hour. And should I give this up for helping these children that they're not mine? I know them, from afar. Do I give up a good career, good practice, to stand in a corner for these children who has no relation to me? I said yes almost immediately because 20 years ago when I first visited Cambodia, I saw children living on top of the trash site. They lived there in the trash site. And every day they would get up and take a stick and poke the trash for food. Whatever they can find, they eat there. And when the dump truck comes and unload the trash of the day onto the side, they will be running to this truck and using the sticks, they will poke and poke and poke and look for food. And I said, I can't go back to Singapore not doing anything about helping these children. And so when the director then asked if I could come on board as one of the board members, I immediately said yes, and I've been going to Cambodia every two, three times a year to help these kids. I said, now it's an opportunity for me to serve these children full time, to stand in the corner for them. And I want to thank your pastor, Pastor Patrick, and your church for being one of our strongest supporters of this ministry. Because these children went from living in the trash sites, now they went from this to this. Now they are attending school, they have lessons, they have food. They learn English, math, and the Bible. Every week we serve 750 children from 3 villages. Every Sunday they will come for Sunday school, and then we have a feeding program after the Sunday school. This man here, he was a trash picker. His name is Panyar, but today he's our information technology teacher. He teaches these kids, our kids, computer skills. He went from living in the trash site, and these trash kids are called trash kids, and they will be known as trash kids for the rest of their life. It's like a label that will attach to them. But he went from being a trash kid to be a teacher. This man here, his name is Sign. He was an orphan before, and now today he planted 2 churches. Became a church planter. And I'm cheering them from the corner and say, you can do it, I'm here for you. This girl in white was abandoned by her family, her parents, when she was 6, 7 years old. And she had 2 younger siblings, and she had to go out, pick up those plastic bottles and then collect them and sell them to the recycling company so that she can find some food and bring some food back for herself and her younger siblings. And so we brought her into our center, and we fed her, we schooled her, we discipled her, and then one day she said, I want to be a doctor. I said, why you want to be a doctor? She said, in my village, people die from just waterborne disease. If they have flu, they will die. They will not survive because medical assistance there is almost zero. I want to go back to my village and help them. If I'm a doctor, I can help them. I said, you work hard. I will work hard to send you to medical school. You work hard. And last year, she became Dr. Sapol Ong. From the killing field in Cambodia, she went to make it into a healing field. This was a video taken when I was back there in Cambodia in March. Prior to the COVID, 2.5 years ago, we started a church for young people, for the youth in the village. It was hard starting it because meeting together wasn't permitted, but the church grew. All the young people came from the village. And can you play the video, please? Hey everybody, I'm in Siem Reap, Cambodia. 3 years ago, we started a church for the young people in the village here. I just want to take you in and see what's going on inside. Okay, come on, let's go in. Wow, isn't this exciting to see these young people who have never heard of Jesus just 2-3 years ago, now worshiping God every Sunday in this place. And according to official records, there were only 1% Christians in the entire country of Cambodia, and we want to turn Cambodia for Jesus. Well, our strategy is to reach down to the children, to provide them with education. And with the children, we are able then to reach their parents. And today, every week, we are reaching out to 750 children in 3 villages, training them, teaching them with the language, with computer skills and all that, so that they can have a brighter future and they can come to know Jesus. So if you want to sponsor any of these children, well, just visit our website, and just for $1.33, you can provide hope for these children. Thank you and God bless. So for $1.33 a day, which is not even half a cup of coffee from Starbucks, you can feed a child 3 meals a day and send this same child to school. $40 a month. For $40 a month, you are feeding this child 3 meals a day and send this child to school. Maybe this child is the person that God is asking if you could stand in the corner for him or for her. There's some of these brochures at the back, there's a table at the back. Just go on, pick them up, bring them home, no obligation. If you don't want to sponsor, that's fine, but you can pray for this child. Information of this child is at the back, and there's a QR code, and you want to know more about this child, click on the QR code and the information will appear for the child that you are picking up. Remember the slave girl? She overlooked her prejudice. Doesn't matter if he's Aramaic, I'm Hebrew, doesn't matter. This is an opportunity for God to shine. Maybe He will acknowledge that our God of Israel is true, is real. She obeyed God. She could have just said, no, God, this person doesn't deserve healing. She obeyed. COVID has ravaged the world. We often read about the number of people who died or contracted COVID, but we don't really get the statistics of people who suffers from COVID psychologically. World Health Organization, they came up with these statistics. It says 1 in 4 people suffering from depression today. 1 in 8 people suffers from anxiety or some kind of anxiety disorders. Every 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, someone is attempting suicide now. Every 40 seconds, someone died from suicide. The world is dark. Don't let our prejudice stop us from becoming God's light to shine. When the world is dark, the light shines brightest. Will you be God's light? Because the least expected person in the corner may just be you. Lord, I pray that your word will resonate in the hearts and the minds of your people. It doesn't matter who is in the ring. It matters that I am found in the corner of the ring to be the light, to shine, to be an encourager, to be the cheerleader, to be the blesser. I pray, God, that your people will continue to stand up and be counted and said, here am I, God, send me. Send me to the corner of someone else's ring so that I can be the light that shines in me and the light that will shine through me. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you all.
Amen.